It's no secret, I'm a pretty big fan of Trackballs, so when GameBall reached out and asked me if I wanted to review their latest mouse, you know I wasn't going to turn down taking it for a spin. Welcome back to Craft Computing, everyone. As always, I'm Jeff. This is the GameBall, and as the name implies, it's a gaming-focused trackball from GameBall. This is their only product so far, but according to their website, it's been in development for 5 years. And given my proclivity for trackballs, I have some very high hopes for this being a quality mouse. Let's start out with what you get inside the box, and that is the GameBall mouse itself, a quick start guide in 4 languages, and if they reached out and asked you if you wanted to review the mouse, a nice handwritten note. Thanks, Eric. Taking a look at the hardware itself, we have a 38.1mm or 1.5-inch optically tracked ball that glides on a trio of ceramic bearings. The sensor has a claimed tracking resolution of up to 3000 dpi and is adjustable directly on the mouse via one of the side buttons. Let's get this out of the way first. This ball is one of the best that I have ever used, and it may as well be floating on air. There is practically no resistance to get it rolling, and it glides effortlessly on top of its bearings. Tracking is fast, accurate, and very easy to get acclimated to. This is a wired-only trackball and connects via a built-in 178cm long USB cable. Personally, I would much prefer to see this replaced with a USB-C port and a user-replaceable cable instead. While there's nothing inherently wrong with a non-replaceable cable, it does limit your cable management and customization options that I'm more used to seeing in peripherals in this price range. It would certainly make it a lot more enticing with the custom keyboard crowd as well. The overall feel is very nice, with a soft plastic surface that feels silky smooth under your hand. The buttons on each side are a slightly harder plastic with a fairly shallow travel and satisfying click when actuated. On the bottom of the mouse are 4 rubber pads, which kept the GameBall very well planted on my desk and showed no signs of sliding. The button layout is 100% symmetrical, allowing for both left or right-handed use, and this can be toggled directly on the mouse itself. Around the trackball is a ring of touch-sensitive buttons, the top of which will switch you between left and right-handed modes. Why you would need to switch between left and right-handed modes on the fly? I'm not sure. The bottom button is an RGB toggle for changing the color of the LED in the rear, which is essential to a gaming peripheral, and finally to the left and right of the trackball are trackpads for scrolling, one horizontal and the other for vertical. On those trackpads are 2 different scrolling modes. By default, the mouse works in continuous scrolling mode, which honestly was exceedingly difficult to use. Because the input is a touchpad and there's no physical or haptic feedback to how fast you're scrolling, or even where your finger is on the trackpad, I found it wildly inaccurate and unpredictable. Small movements of my finger often sent the page flying to the top or bottom when I was only trying to scroll down a paragraph or 2. Linear mode is much more familiar and operates just like a standard scroll wheel, where the scroll only works if your finger is moving, not depending on where your finger is on the touchpad. I can see some use cases for continuous scrolling, but in games where precision is needed, like for switching to a specific weapon, with no physical feedback, it's far too easy to overshoot how far you're trying to scroll. Each side of the mouse has 3 physical buttons. To the left side are the primary click, back button, and middle click, which is usually under the mouse wheel on a standard mouse. However, the layout of these buttons has my brain deeply confused. When placing my hand on the GameBall, my thumb immediately wants to sit on the largest of the 3 buttons, and one would assume that would be your left click. But you'd also be wrong, as that's the back button for your browser. Instead, the left click is the smaller button towards the bottom of this stack, and to me, doesn't feel nearly as natural to use. The small button in between the 2 is the middle click, which, just like a regular mouse, is used for continuous scrolling, which feels like an odd choice, as again the scroll trackpad by default ships in continuous mode, so you're basically duplicating features with 2 different inputs on the mouse. To the right side of the mouse are your right click, forward button, and DPI adjustment. But here's where things get really mind-bendingly weird. They reversed the inputs on this side, so the upper button is your right click, with the bottom button acting as your browser forward, and the center button being your DPI selector. And that brings us perfectly into the ergonomics of the GameBall, which is where it all kind of falls apart for me. Now, do not misunderstand me here. The hardware used in the GameBall is fantastic, and the fit and finish feels actually more polished than either of my Elecom trackballs. But try as I might, I just cannot use this mouse comfortably. Like all things ergonomic, your personal preference and physiology could be radically different than mine. You could sit in a different chair, have a different desk, you could not be 6'5" with palms to fit Shaquille O'Neal and fingers to fit, well, Linus. Seriously, look at these things. It's amazing I can tie my own shoes. Although now that I think about it, suddenly his sandals make a lot more sense. I guess we'll start with just plopping my hand down. Let's look at the arrangement of the trackball, scroll pads, and the buttons where I place my thumb. In this position, I have 2 fingers on the ball, which feels absolutely fine. My thumb wants to be on the largest button at the top. My ring finger does rest comfortably on the vertical trackpad, but my pinky just kind of lists lazily off to the side. In this position, my thumb is in entirely the wrong place for the left click. Moving it further down to sit on the correct button feels mildly uncomfortable. And if I know anything about sitting at a desk in front of a computer for 13 years, mildly uncomfortable turns into chronic pain in the blink of an eye. But wait, we're just getting started with this. As 4 of my fingers are now occupied with other inputs, the only digit left to click the right mouse button is my pinky. And no matter how I try to contort my hand, I can only manage to actuate it by moving it sideways. So rather than clicking a button, I'm squeezing inward on the mouse body with the side of my pinky, which does put considerable strain higher up in my hand. What's even worse? Try pulling up your scope in a game by squeezing your pinky inward and then holding it there. 3 reps of 6 seconds and I was ready to call an early end to hand day. Now, if we were to cut the GameBall in half, let's remove the right side buttons entirely and leave only the trackball, the ring, and the left side inputs. As a right-handed trackball user, I do really like what's going on here. The mouse body is very comfortable, my thumb lands naturally on the upper button, and can easily reach the other 2 on that side. Having a trackpad in lieu of a scroll wheel does take some getting used to, but it does work well enough with my ring finger off to the side of the trackball. As for the trackball itself, buttery smooth. I think the problem here is, this feels like a product where the designers may have had conflicting goals in mind. They wanted to make a great gaming trackball, and again, to be fair, the trackball itself is one of the best that I have ever felt. But I think where they missed the boat is when it comes to what gamers want out of a mouse where the rest of the inputs are concerned. A trackpad with no tactile feedback is no replacement for a scroll wheel with clicks at each step. And while my thumb was comfortable at the upper half of this device, the lack of customizable button layouts means holding it in a more high-stress position to reach the left mouse click. On the pinky side of things, not only were the buttons far too difficult for me to reach and use on a regular basis, but with the left and right clicks and the forward and back buttons not being in the same orientation on different sides of the mouse, my brain kept getting confused about which button is which. But that out of the way, even allowing me to change button assignments in software is not going to fix the ergonomics of the other side of the mouse. While I absolutely admire the effort and the hardware on display here, this feels like a peripheral that was compromised by trying too hard to be too good at everything. Because it's ambidextrous, half the mouse is going to be unusable for both lefties and righties because of the compromises in ergonomics. Because of the decision to use a scrolling trackpad instead of a wheel, it's both less natural and less precise after 25 years of muscle memory practicing on a scroll wheel. Overall, I think the concept of the GameBall is actually quite good, but the symmetry has got to go for this to be a usable product. Sorry, lefties. Raising up the right-hand side of the mouse and allowing for the button presses to be vertical on both my ring and pinky finger, combined with customizable button layouts, would solve almost all the complaints that I have here. Unfortunately, unless the PCB can fit in both a left and right-handed chassis, that means double the development cost for the PCB and double the tooling cost for production of an already niche product. If you're interested in learning more about the GameBall, I will have a link to their website down in the video description. Their standard edition GameBall should be releasing today for order, and I'm curious to see if others had fewer ergonomic issues than I did with my over-tightened sausage fingers. On your way to check that out, make sure to drop this video a like and subscribe to Craft Computing if you haven't done so already. Follow me on Twitter at Craft Computing to keep up with daily shenanigans like this. Head on over to craftcomputing.store to get yourself a fancy pint glass or a new t-shirt. And if you like the content you see on this channel and want to help support me in what I do, consider joining the Patreon. Link is also down in the video description. Thank you all so much for watching this one, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys. Oh, that one's so good. Today's Today's beer is from 49th State Brewing. It is the Golden Dall Belgian-inspired Trackball, clocking in at 8.5%. Oh, wow. That clove and little bit of spice just hitting my nose from here. Oh, I am looking forward to this. Oh my God. That is, simply put, one of the best Belgian beers I've ever had. That malt is like roasted caramel. It's thick, it's chewy, all the right spices are there. Oh man. I am a sucker for a good Belgian, and this may be my new favorite. My apologies to Benedictine Brewing over in Mount Angel, Oregon. You're gonna need to step your game up. Oh God, that is good. That is dangerous. I don't know that I even want to finish this video. I just want to look at you all day. A little deeper into this beer now, I'm starting to get more of that banana backing that you usually get in Belgian-style beers. And this is just so perfectly balanced. I'm also getting a little bit more of that Belgian malt spice way in the back. Man, oh man. That's just a good beer.